in a time when the Roman armies slit the throats of men, soldiers, and countries, there lived Queen Boadicea, the warrior queen. She lived in a part of Britain. That is where her kingdom was. And her king was ailing, dying, but could see how the Romans treated people. And he worried for his queen and his two princess daughters. One day the king, when he knew he was going to pass, said, "My dear Boadicea, the Romans are greedy. They are hungry power. They are hungry for power and wealth and land. And to ensure your dignity and respect, and you will be treated well by them when I am gone, I will give them half of our kingdom and half of our gold." And Queen Boadicea said, "Really? Half of our kingdom, half of our gold?" He says, My queen, Boadicea, listen. The Romans do not respect people, let alone a queen. So it is better to give this gift to ensure that you will be treated with dignity and respect, and our daughters will be treated with dignity and respect. For I see no other way to make that happen. Very well. And so the king gave the Romans half of their kingdom and half of the gold. And then he died, knowing that his family would be treated well. But the grave had not even cooled before the Romans came to Queen Boadicea. A small band of Romans, an embassy, came to Queen Boadicea. And they said, "We know that the king gave half of your kingdom and half of your wealth, but you are a weak queen, and we will take it all from you." She said, "No, my king gave you half of the kingdom and half of our gold to ensure that myself and my daughters would be treated with dignity and respect. I will not give up my kingdom." And then the Roman embassy, that all of those men that came, they said, "Oh, we will treat you with dignity and respect. And you will respect us soon enough." And they beat Queen Boadicea. They beat her, and they took liberties that were not granted. And her daughters, she watched her daughters get beaten by the Romans, and their liberties were taken without consent. And they said, "Queen Boadicea, we will give you 24 hours to decide that it is better to live under Roman rule than deal with our fury and anger." And they left. Queen Boadicea stood up. She put her dress down, and the anger raged inside of her. "If half is not enough, I will not give all." And so she sent out people to proclaim to come to the castle. "Come, Queen Boadicea has something to say to her kingdom." And so they all came, and outside of the castle, Queen Boadicea, she stood on a hill so everyone could hear. She said, Our king gave half of our kingdom and half of our gold to ensure that the Romans would treat us with dignity and respect. But half was not enough for the Romans, for they have come to me and said that if I do not give it all, they will not treat us with dignity and respect. But I will tell you, it doesn't matter how much we give, they will not treat us with dignity and respect. They have taken liberties that have not been granted. And I say we fight. For it is better for us to fight and to die than to become subject to the Romans. For they are cruel and bloodthirsty and will kill and never treat us with dignity and respect that we deserve. And all of her kingdom, they rose up and they said, we will fight with Queen Boadicea. And the warriors took their shields and their swords and they clanked them. And Queen Boadicea got on her horse and she led out her soldiers. And men came behind her. Everyone would fight with Queen Boadicea. They would rather die than live under Roman rule. And fight Queen Boadicea did. The Romans thought it would be just an easy, a woman, we can beat her and her little ragtag army. But she and her people fought with the hearts of dragons. In fact, she was skilled at fighting, and she completely took down 30,000 in London. All of the Romans and all of the Roman sympathizers were defeated. And the same thing happened in St. Albans. But over time, the cruelty and experience of the Roman armies started to win and take over. But Queen Boadicea fought with a dragon's heart. But one night, Queen Boadicea was in her castle, and she knew that in the morning, the Romans would come. They would defeat the rest of the ragtag army, and they would ransack that castle. And she would not risk being treated with dignity and respect. And so she locked herself and her 2 daughters in her bedchamber. She had a golden chalice with rubies around the side. And she told her daughters, it is better for us to die than to live as slaves for the Romans. Here, my sweet girls, we will treat us with dignity and respect. And so the oldest daughter drank from the goblet, and the youngest drank from the wine, and Queen Boadicea drank from the wine. And they curled up in her bed with the queen's arms around her daughters. In the morning, the Romans defeated the rest of the armies. They broke down the castle door and they ransacked the castle. But when they got to the royal bedchambers, the army said, this is Queen Boadicea's boudoir. We be prepared, for she will fight with the heart of a dragon. So the men stood with their swords out, ready, and they broke down the door swung open. It was completely silent in Queen Boadicea's chambers. The army looked around. They quietly went in, expecting Queen to come out roaring. But Queen Boadicea and her daughters would never roar again. For it is better to die than to become captive and a slave to the Romans.